Memorial Day weekend 1972. That's when Bob Campo Jr. and the shop crew from Campos decided to see how far they could take their Evinrude outboard-powered jet boats up the Salcha River. 34 years earlier, in 1938, Bob's father, Bob Campo Sr., had first come to Alaska from Washington State, where he worked as a machinist. An avid fisherman and hunter, the senior Campo had a passion for running as far up Alaskan rivers as he could get in an attempt to take a moose back to feed his family for the long Fairbanks winters. Bob Sr. was instrumental in the design and development of the spring-loaded outboard motor lift, a contraption that was bolted to the boat's transom and lifted the outboard higher when the driver leaned on the lift handle, allowing the prop to skim over shallow sand and gravel bars. So on that sunny day in 1972, the crew loaded up the flat-bottom, riveted aluminum Washita riverboats with food, tents, tools, and of course a few extra impellers and jet feet, knowing full well about the boulder gardens that added some extra challenges to finding the upper headwaters of the Salcha River. This is where they were hoping to hang their shiny new Evinrude Country sign many hours after leaving the boat launch. And succeed they did, after thumping and pounding the flimsy, riveted hulls 120 miles up the river, with moose and caribou witnessing their incredible adventure. A story of the banner-hanging trip appeared in the July 1972 issue of Docklines magazine, a publication by Evinrude about unique boating trips from Evinrude dealers from all over the country. Fast forward 20 years, and now Bob's son Craig, yet another Campo river rat, decided to continue the tradition. Craig moved the challenge to the Goodpaster River near Delta Junction, where the family had a small cabin 45 miles up the river to be used as a base camp. The challenge, to reach the highest point upriver by jet boat, became an exciting annual event for the younger Campo, who used the adventure to constantly test and improve the shallow water riverboats sold at Campos. Tunnel hulls, stomp grates, wheel kits, and most recently, UHMW bottoms are just a few of the innovations that have made finding the upper reaches of an interior Alaskan river less damaging to the boat and much easier on the operator. In 2004, Campo and his crew made another charge up the Goodpaster, this time with folks from Riverjet magazine along for the ride to see if they could surpass the previous record from just 3 years prior. With a lot of blood, sweat, and beers, cracked open of course only after they set up camp, Campos adventurers proudly hung their new sign between two trees high on the riverbank as if the crew had just stepped off the lunar module. After all, this assault on the river is what Campo and crew seem to live for. This time around, the shop crew was pretty sure no other jet boat would be able to navigate as far up the river, and so the challenge in 2004 became official. A $500 cash reward would be offered for any other brand of jet boat that could make it past the hanging sign. The use of helicopter to lift the jet boat there prohibited. Over the next 6 years, the sign remained. Several local hardcore boatniks and some of Campo's competitors in Fairbanks attempted to retrieve the now infamous sign, collect the $500, and more importantly, the bragging rights. In the end, the only thing damaged more than the challengers' boat bottoms would be their egos. In August 2011, Campo and Company decided if anyone was to move the now faded 7-year-old sign further up the river, it would have to be the Campo crew themselves. After all, the new and improved SJX jet boats now had the added advantage of a full 3/8-inch thick UHMW, ultra-high molecular weight plastic bottom, cleverly named Black Ice, giving incredible impact protection and making the bottom many times less abrasion resistant than aluminum. The water level in the Goody was about average, meaning that the boulders that lined the river about an hour above Pogo Mine would make the challenge exciting and a bit dangerous. Campo decided to bring along a film crew for the event, Grizzly Media, who was working on a promo project for a national network that specialized in unique, non-typical outdoor and hunting adventures. This trip seemed to fit the bill perfectly. Since it was caribou hunting season, the new goal was to not only move the sign further up the headwaters, but to bring back a caribou on the same trip. Furthermore, the network requested an Alaskan gal to be part of the River Challenge, perhaps due to the success of the Sarah Palin TV series that had been featured on another network earlier that year. The addition of a tough Alaskan gal on the trip seemed a national prerequisite, as the 1972 Salcha River Challenge that Craig's father organized included the wives of 3 of the employees that were part of that initial adventure. Not to be outdone, the 2011 team was fired up and ready for the challenge on August 25th. The players were Craig Campo, his sales manager and hunting sharpshooter Rodney Vesper, Steve Stokowski, the owner of SJX Jet Boats in Orfino, Idaho, Chris Daly of Grizzly Media, and Jennifer Uhas, who has been heavily involved in outdoor and NRA issues and a huge supporter of statewide hunting rights. Uhas is known for her love of hunting and outdoor adventures and quickly accepted the offer to join the crew on the River Challenge hunting trip.
What's the plan for the day?
Today,
What are you doing?
we're multitasking. I think what I'd like to try and do, of course, is move our sign. That's what we're here for. But obviously, try and get a caribou at the same time. There's a lot of hazards out there. You'll see. I mean, there's trees down, there's shallow shelves, there's switchbacks. Like the Easy Clean, you have to run to the back of the boat and stomp it and keep going. Well, now we've developed a handle, a helm lever, so if you get something in on a bad spot and you're drifting towards a sweeper, you simply shut the key off, grab the handle, start it and go. You remember '04 when Rodney was there when we put the sign up. I mean, we were physically exhausted by the end of that day.
Yeah, everybody by the end of that day, it's the mental strain of, are we going to get back down? Are we going to hit again? Oh my God, are we going to have to drag this thing another 5 feet, 10 feet? Right, are we going to rip it in half up here? Because every rock you hit, you stick to almost, and you have to hop out and drag the boat and drag the boat. And, at some point, it's draining.
So this is really a testing ground, is what it is. We're kind of pushing ourselves, but then every year we come back and over winter we think, well, how can we make it better? How can we make it easier? As you get older, your body gets hurt more when you're pushing these boats off gravel bars, so you want to be able to slide over stuff. You can't do that with an outboard jet because there's not enough control in the water. You can't do it with a typical inboard jet because it's too heavy. And the nice thing with these boats is they're 3/4 lock to lock on the wheel. In single lever, you can be going 50 miles an hour. You can be going backwards in 1 second, half a second motion. There's not an easier boat to drive in the world.
So when will we need that feature? When will you guys use it?
What time?
All the way.
Friday, the weather was perfect, about 65 degrees and clear, which is exactly what you want for good visibility to make the run up. Campo knew that perfect conditions like this going upstream were far from perfect conditions coming back down. The severe sun glare on the river in the later afternoons make navigation treacherous, with sleepers just at or below the water surface, littering the river for miles through what the group refers to as the Boulder Garden. After going past Pogo Mine at 88 Mile, almost the only sign of civilization on the river past the splits, we continued upriver and took a lunch break at Rock Creek Cabin, an old trapper's cabin built in the 1930s or 1940s. After a quick lunch of kippered king salmon and Ritz crackers, the crew pushed on, dodging more boulders and gaining elevation rapidly. As the SJX boats continued up the river, the steady climb of the river dumping out of the foothills felt completely different than the lazy, slow-moving water of the lower river. According to the GPS from the previous sign location in 2004, the elevation gain from the point of departure at the Delta Bridge to where the sign hung is almost a quarter mile. At this point in the trip, you can actually see 6 to 12 foot rises in elevation from one bend in the river to the next. Finally, after a couple more hours of boulder thumping, sweeper dodging, gravel bar skimming, and beaver dam jumping, the excited and now frazzled crew made it to the old sign location from 2004. The wind and weather had taken a toll on the old plastic sign. In fact, the crew could still clearly see signs of aluminum that they had left on the rocks from years earlier.
You can see it on the rocks on either side here.
For this crew, it was suddenly comforting to know that no other boats had been to this point in the river since the Riverjet gang hung it there in '04, 2 years before Sarah Palin was even elected the mayor of Wasilla. At this point in the trip, an executive decision has to be made. And with the new UHMW bottoms and other new innovative skinny water add-ons, the decision is an easy one. Gentlemen, start your engines. Let's keep going, said Compo. From this point, the most common words uttered in the boat as all pushed on were, "That ought to be interesting coming back down." 180-degree switchbacks, constantly braiding river channels, fallen trees completely across the river, and shoals of nothing but wet rocks make pushing further a real challenge going upriver. These same obstacles coming downriver with a racing current and a blinding sun off the water make the return more than just memorable. It's what shallow water river addicts refer to as the pucker factor. Smacking a few boulders on the return is not just a possibility, it's a probability. Fortunately for the crew, these new SJX have solid welded, not skip welded, stringers and gussets, giving the boats incredible strength and the ability to take a pounding without causing the hull to split or the welds to crack. The durable, thick, slippery bottoms are far more forgiving than raw aluminum, and it is almost impossible to puncture a hole in the boat bottom with a UHMW protection. The amazing material is the same thing that bulletproof vests are made of. In fact, Compo has used the term bulletproof in his sales pitch for the boat bottom, and it's more fact than just sales hype. With new, never-seen river in front of them, the excited gang of 5 kept charging. Within just a couple of miles, they encountered a very tight and technical stretch of river. What little water remained split into 3 narrow braids. The only chance to get past it being an 8-foot-wide strip of water hugging the right bank, with trees hanging over the riverbanks as virtual keep out signs, and a steep, gradual incline of water spilling over the semi-exposed rocks as it entered the corner.
So we're up a fair amount past the old sign from 2004. We got a shelf of rocks here. We're going to have to pull this gut next to that tree and then hug tight. It's going to climb about 6 feet here up on to the flat water again. So we should be able to make it with the plastic bottom. Shouldn't be a problem. Then we'll just see what's around the corner.
Steve made the first attempt at this damp floor, and amazingly, the boat chugged its way through, up and over the wet rock shelf, and on around the corner to where the 3 braids of water came back as one river. As the boats continued on, down trees became a regular part of the river, but with no jet components hanging at or below the bottom of the boat, and the mercury jet unit elevated on the boat's unique tunnel hull, sliding over trees, even those with 14-inch and larger diameters, became a non-issue. The most potentially dangerous obstacle, and something that can always make these river adventurers go from an adrenaline rush to a hypothermic nightmare, are sweepers. And there is no shortage of sweepers in this area. Sweepers are low-hanging trees and root systems that protrude from the side of the riverbank, almost daring you to get near them. A boat floating without power into these sweepers will almost always get swamped, sending the passengers, guns, and gear into the water faster than you can say, "Holy sh**." Sweepers are the very reason that Compo designed for the SJX a helm-mounted jet cleanout lever. In a typical jet boat, when you get rocks or sticks in the intake, you have little or no power to maneuver away from danger, and danger tends to creep into the boat very fast. With the advancement of the foot lever-mounted intake stomp lever in the early 1990s, the driver or one of the passengers could go run to the stern of the boat and push down on the spring-loaded cleanout lever to clear the jet intake of debris. On this stretch of the river, there is simply no reaction time for that. And for that very reason, every SJX jet boat is now equipped with a simple and convenient cleanout lever mounted right where the driver can grab it and clean out debris from the pump in less than 2 seconds.
There's a creek I've never seen.
Another 30 or 40 minutes of tight, twisty river running, and we knew we were getting close. At this point, not only were we looking for enough water to safely come off plane, we are also looking for a high bank with a pair of strong trees to have the honor of holding up our sign for at least another season. And there they were. As we pulled the boat to the bank, with the turbulent water trying to shove us back into the current, we tied up the boat and proudly hung our new 8-foot vinyl sign. This year, the sign reads, "If you can read this, you must be driving an SJX jet boat from Compos." We stayed at the site, took pictures, and had a celebratory beverage before heading back down through what we knew would be a white-knuckle adventure. Rodney used his Spot, an emergency locator device, to text his girlfriend our location, letting her know all was well. These devices showed the recipient of the text the exact location of the person sending the message, both with the actual coordinates and on a map. When we returned to cell phone range that following Sunday, Rodney anxiously asked her if she had received the text with the coordinates. She replied that she had, but asked why we had hiked into the foothills of the mountains to send the text. She was shocked to learn that Rodney was actually sitting in one of the boats when he sent the Spot text. We laughed when she told Rodney it appeared that we were sheep hunting. Amazingly, these boats navigated back down with very little problem, unlike our return trips in the past. We collectively gave the credit for this to the Black Ice Bottoms, our name for the UHMW full coverage option that both of these boats had been upgraded to. Several times we got hung up on a shallow gravel bar, and amazingly were able to just tap the throttle and power our way back into deeper water thanks to the combination of the elevated tunnel hull and black ice bottom. In years past, it would take at least 4 people lifting and grunting on the boat to break it free from where it was high-centered. As we are not getting any younger, Steve mentioned to Craig that this technology has saved us a fair amount of money by not having to stock up on Advil and Bengay. The logs we had jumped over on the way upriver were now slightly lower in the river and wet, making the downstream run over them effortless. After about 2 hours in the downstream run, we came around a wide, sweeping left-hand corner where we spotted a beautiful bull caribou staring at us about 100 yards away. Perfect. The second goal of our river challenge was hopefully about to be met. Steve chopped the throttle, killed the engine, and began drifting as the curious boo finally decided it was a good time to vacate the area. Jennifer was the designated shooter, but just when she got the large bull in her sights and reached for the trigger, the boat tapped a boulder and she was forced to reposition herself, unable to get a clean shot off. As the caribou headed into the brush, Rodney, our backup sniper, connected with a perfect shot, courtesy of a .375 Ultramag slug. Game over.
This has been a nice day.
That looks like a wolf track over here, bear right there, caribou tracks through there.
As we still had a long way to go to get back to our base camp, we chose to gut the caribou and hoist the entire animal onto the front deck of the boat and continue downriver where we could relax and take our time field dressing it at camp. It dawned on us that up to this point on that entire trip, the most energy we collectively expended was not getting our 1,800-pound SJX jet boats off of a gravel bar, but hoisting the 350-pound caribou into the nose of the SJX.
All right, good job, team. We got her. Team SJX. Set the record, drop a boo. Let's get a bear on the way back. Remember, Rodney and I, we dropped a moose, and then 10 minutes later, come around the corner, there's a grizz on the banks.
It's all good.
All right. Good job.
After the caribou was put into game bags and hung on our meat pole, we sat around the campfire, had a cold beer, and reflected on everything that had happened that amazing day. Somehow, we all knew how hard it was going to be to wait until next year, when we try to outdo ourselves with another assault on the river. After all, if not us, who?
Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Beats Beats all you never saw. Been in trouble with the law since the day they was born. Straightening the curves, flattening the hills. Someday the mountain might get 'em, but the law never will. Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw. Been in trouble with the law since the day they was born. Making their way the only way they know how. That's just a little bit more than the law will allow. Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Someday the mountain might get 'em, but the law never will. Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw. Been in trouble with the law since the day they was born. Straightening the curves, flattening the hills. Someday the mountain might get 'em, but the law never will. Making their way the only way they know how. That's just a little bit more than the law will allow. Just a good old boy, wouldn't change if they could. Fighting the system like a true modern day Robin Hood.